Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. Super excited to welcome our guest today. We've got Rob Billington with us. How are you, brother?
What's going on, Tommy? I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm excited to have you, man. I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of your show, Monster Fuzz, and
cool,
I'm
cool.
excited to get into the freaky stuff that we love here at Let's Get Freaky.
Oh yeah, I'm all good with the freaky stuff. I like to get freaky. Monster Fuzz gets freaky.
I know you do, man. You talk
Yeah.
cryptids, paranormal,
Yeah.
UFOs, folklore,
Um,
all that cool stuff, man. So
yeah,
let's.
it's the same as yourself, really. Yeah, we cover that kind of high strangeness sort of umbrella, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I love it. I'd like to go to the start. What
hmm
got you into these wild subjects?
Yeah, so basically we probably as kids, you're probably around our age, are you? What age are you?
So I'm 37.
Yeah, so same age as me. I'm 36. So
Oh,
I
cool.
think, yeah, so you might remember, like, as kids, maybe there was a bit of still a bit of a bustle about the Loch Ness Monster. We actually realized as we were doing the notes for our latest Loch Ness episodes that it wasn't until the 90s, the early 90s, that Loch Ness Monster, that hoax was actually proven to be a hoax. So
Hmm.
up until that point, everyone was just kind of like, I don't know whether it looks real. Some people thought it did, whatever. And so that was kind of there in the brain. There was a couple of kids' books I read around that age. There's one called like something Monsters, but it had like a sea monster on the cover. Really cool book. And that has like I found it only recently. I totally forgot about this book. Found it recently and reading through it, like there's so much content for even our podcast now, and I'm like, wow, like this is lots. So that was my first introduction to it. Kind of forgot about it for years and years and years. And Eamon, me and Eamon met when we were about, I was probably 17, Eamon was about 2021, and it was a mutual interest. Eamon was into that kind of thing too.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you have buddies that you might have a certain interest with a certain buddy, and it's like the two of you have that separate thing to the rest of your mate group or whatever.
Yeah,
That's me and Eamon. So like me and Eamon had a lot of those similar interests, and cryptids were one of them, and paranormal ghost stuff as well. Yeah, for sure.
awesome. I like when you find someone that loves cryptids as well. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, let's
especially over
go.
here, man. Like,
Yeah, I
especially
know.
like in the UK and Ireland, this like, I get jealous. I was listening to your podcast. You're hearing about these guys out finding infected dog man and all this, and me and you were trying to like dodge homeless people attacking us outside Tesco's and shit like that. Like, we don't get that big fun. We
And
don't
and
get
that's
that
and that's
type of.
probably scarier, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes I find like if you're over this way, we don't have the same sort of folklore with that kind of cryptid, right? So
Mhm.
we don't in Ireland. There's a couple of bits. There's like one called the Door Coo, which is kind of like this mythological otter type of thing. And that is again another one that kind of crosses the border of, is it just mythology? Was there ever an actual cryptid? There's a few giant worms, but are they as cool as Dogman or Bigfoot? Like, let's be honest.
Wow, wow. What's that otter, man? Can you tell me a bit more about that? What's
Yeah,
the folklore behind
Dorku.
that?
So it's an Irish term. So it's Dobhar and then Chu. Um, and basically, I can't remember the lake. It's one of our first episodes. So you're talking 4 years ago now. But basically, a giant otter hangs out in this lake. There was a bunch of sightings back in the day, like you're talking, I think 1600s maybe. But the cool thing is about it that we found out when we were doing notes, because a lot of time with mythology, you're like, is that all there is to it? But there's actually a headstone in that area that depicts this guy getting killed by a Dorku. So it's actually on the headstone engraved. And you're like, okay, well, that's interesting. It's something a little bit different, something to kind of hold on to with the legend. Why it was put there, who knows? But yeah, it's up. I want to say it's up somewhere like mid West Ireland somewhere. I'll send you on the details after the episode for sure too.
Awesome, man. What part of
Um,
Ireland are you based in?
I'm in Wexford, which is the southeast, so I'm actually probably the closest spot to Wales. So like for us to even just get a ferry over to Wales is very quick.
Mhm.
So yeah, so pretty close to the UK in general, yeah.
Yeah, well, you're not too far from me, man. Really, I'm in Dorset in the
Oh, you're
UK.
in Dorset, yeah, yeah, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
and I
So we're not
found
too
out
far.
literally what was it like a couple of days ago that I
Yeah,
can get a boat from like 10 minutes from my
yeah.
house straight to you, man.
Come over and visit. Is that a London
I'm
accent you
coming.
have though?
I'm from Essex, So
I'm from Essex, right?
yeah, so I'm next to London. I used to work in London. I'm pretty.
Did
All my
you?
family's from London, so yeah, I'm a,
Yeah.
I'm a London boy.
You've got a great accent for podcasts. You should be doing as well, like a hardest geezer podcast or something like that.
Thank you,
You
man.
should, yeah, you should.
Talk,
Yeah, you've got the
talking
accent for it.
talking to criminals, talking to
Yeah, absolutely, man.
London
That's perfect
gangsters.
for it. Fucking geezer. Yeah, it'd be
Danny
perfect.
Dyer, Danny
Yeah,
Dyer.
absolutely. Yeah.
Because that's the thing now. Because it's weird. Because I'm not too far from London now. I'm only 2 hours away.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
always still going back to London,
Mhm.
but it's very different. Only 2 hours away. Like
Oh
people
yeah,
talk
man.
differently, act differently.
It's
It's wild.
Wexford is like that from Dublin. So Wexford is about an hour and a half drive from Dublin, and yeah, totally different pace to life. I'd probably consider it to something similar, like one of those satellite towns away from London city centre. You know, where it's a lot, life is a lot more easy going. It's not as fast paced, but I prefer that. You know what I mean? I think I prefer the kind of chilled out vibe for sure.
Yeah, 100%, man. Me
Yeah.
too. I was surprised when I first moved here. I've been here nearly 3 years now.
Mhm.
Everyone says hello to each other. And you do get that a little bit in London. It's not too bad, obviously, but
I like that. Yeah, I
everyone.
know that's cool. Like I do like that. Sometimes the experience of like I do a lot of hiking.
Mhm.
When you're out on the mountains and stuff, like some countries you go to and some places people don't say hello to each other. But for me, it's just a customary thing. Like, hello, how are you getting on? You know, just a bit of a
Yeah,
back and forth, you know?
yeah. I wasn't
That's
used to
cool.
it, man, when I first moved here. I was like, hello,
You're like, what the fuck is going on?
hello.
Yeah,
What do
yeah.
you want,
What's
man?
your problem?
What are you after?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So have you had paranormal experiences yourself? Have you
Yeah.
experienced any high strangeness?
Yeah. So, yeah, like it was kind of funny again. I don't know. With us as a podcast, I think we kind of we're not necessarily truthers of anything we talk about, right? Where like we don't jump into this 100% believing in anything really. I'd say we're kind of agnostic where we don't have much evidence, but we'd like to believe in the stuff. Maybe if there's better proof,
Mhm.
we're hopeful for it. But yeah, so I think the closest thing to a cryptid or any paranormal experience or any high strangeness experience I've had has been sort of a paranormal one rather, and it was yeah, a couple. It was probably when was it? I was probably about 21, 22. So this was way before the podcast. This was way before, really, to be honest, paranormal stuff would have been as on my radar as it is now. But yeah, it was just one night, and I was lying in the bed. My ex-girlfriend was in the bed with me at the time. She got up to go to the toilet. The way my bathroom was orientated was you could kind of from my bed, you could see out into the hallway, and then you could see the bathroom. And then to the left of that was the kitchen, right? So you could kind of see out, you could see the bathroom, left kitchen. And all the lights in the house were off except for my bedroom and the bathroom now when the girlfriend went in. And so she did her saying she was just about to get out of the bathroom. She was looking in the mirror. She was kind of leaned over, just looking in the mirror, doing taking makeup off, whatever. And she I had kind of closed my eyes. I wouldn't say I was sleepy, but just kind of closed my eyes, was kind of relaxing. And when I opened my eyes, I spotted, I suppose what I could describe as like a silhouette of her. So it was like a shadowy figure. And then from the kitchen, the light was on in the kitchen. So my brain was like, no, I know she's in the kitchen getting a glass of water. So it's not her. And then I closed my eyes again and I was like, took me a minute to process it properly. And I was like, what was that? Then I opened my eyes up again and it was gone. But it was, yeah, a sort of the way I would describe it is basically like a shadow person. It was that kind of, it would have been a shadow person before I knew what one of those was. And it very much mimicked her and looked the same shape and sort of thing. It was basically like echoing what she had done. So I don't really know. Over time, Eamon himself has a couple of sort of similar shadow person ones, like two of them. And yeah, I at the time again, I didn't even really think it was a paranormal experience. It just was kind of one of those things your brain goes, that's funny, that's strange. And you just put it in the back of your mind for years and years. And it wasn't until we literally did a shadow person episode and I was like, that's probably what it was, you know. I have no real speculation as to what it could have been. There was something I learned after the fact, which was that basically she would have had a sister that was miscarried that would have been around the same age and stuff like that. So you know yourself, the paranormal side of things, maybe you're going, is it some kind of spirit? Is it some kind of entity that from that incident? Is there something going on there? You can only really speculate. And again, I didn't even tell her this at the time. It was something that I had kind of just put two and two together, and I said maybe there's something kind of watching her or something like that. Yeah, never said it to her. Just kind of made me all mind up about it. Years later, talked on the podcast, and you're kind of like, all right, okay, so that's a proper experience, you know?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Wow.
weird.
Do you remember how you felt in that moment? Was it scared? Was it a
No,
bit confused? Like, what was your?
honestly, it felt extremely mundane. And what I mean by that is my brain didn't really flag it as being bizarre. It flagged it as that's something strange, but it just carry on kind of thing. It didn't feel, I didn't get spooked. I still don't get spooked when I talk about it. I've had a couple of weird other experiences that were all in the same house, actually, by the way. That, again, are they paranormal? I don't know. I had one time, it was really strange as well, where um it was New Year's, or it was no, it was Christmas. It was Christmas Day, I think, actually. And you know yourself when you're young, like you meet up with your buddies Christmas to get drunk and whatever. So all my mates, I was up in my ma's, I was having Christmas dinner, whatever. All my mates met me and we walked to my apartment at the time, which is where all this the other thing happened. And we were walking, I'd say maybe 5, 10 minutes away from my apartment, and this black dog comes out, just out of nowhere, just walks up alongside us. Super friendly black dog, was really nice. And we were like, this is a really friendly dog. Like, of course, like it's a Labrador, so they're kind of friendly anyway. And it followed me. Um, it followed us, and we were kind of going, "Oh, that's funny. The dog's following us, kind of unlike him, whatever." And then it started to lead the way, and so we're going, "Where's this guy going?" Like we didn't follow him, but he was going the same way we were intending to go. So we followed this dog. Well, we were going where we were going, and we got to the entrance to my apartment. And the way the entrance to my apartment was kind of like a walkway, like a little slip road that you kind of had to zigzag to get to the door. And he walks up the zigzag and sits outside the door. And he's just waiting there for us. And we're like, what is going on with this dog? Like, we weren't even at the door. So I go up, open the door. The dog barges in straight ahead of me, jumps up, sits on my chair, and it's just sitting there looking. And we're all getting a laugh out of it, thinking, like, what is this dog doing? Like, this is mad. Like, you never see something like this. And then that whole night, because now we're worried, we're like, what do we do with the dog? Like, is it, like it's a bit away from home, like, but it seemed really comfortable. So that sat down by my feet for the whole night. We were drinking. This dog was just sitting down with me, chilling. And I have a picture of me with this dog. And it's funny because like it makes it look spookier because the dog's eyes are like white, kind of bluey white. Um, like from the red eye or whatever you want to call it, kind of like a camera artifact. But so then afterward, I think we let the dog out like towards the end of the night, and it went back the way it came. So we were like, okay, cool, whatever. Didn't think no more of it, just thought it was a funny, weird thing. And then on New Year's night, we're all sitting in my apartment on New Year's night. We hear a scratching at the door. Open the door is this fucking dog. He comes in, sits down again. We're like, what's going on here? So I didn't, you look into black dogs and stuff. Most of that stuff has kind of escaped me now, really, because it's been that long since we did the black dog episode. But there was things that at the time I was like, all right, maybe there was a bit more to this encounter than just, oh, it's a dog. It could have been, some people say about spirits taking pets and kind of showing through them and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But quite a weird experience, I would say. I've never had anything like that since. Like, never have I had a dog just be like, yeah, I'm gonna hang out with you for the night and I'm just gonna chill out here. Do you know what
But
I mean? It's very
the
strange.
f- the first party must have been so good. He was like,
Yeah, it was.
I'm
It was
coming back
loving
for
life.
more.
Yeah, he was loving life, man. He was having a few cans, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
jest, but yeah, he was loving life.
Did he come back in on the second
Yeah,
on New Year's
yeah,
Eve?
yeah. I came back around. I came back around with Black Dog.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, Black Dog, and he had this little. He had like a white chin. I'll send you again. I'll send you a picture afterwards. It's cool little picture.
That is cool, man.
And yeah, it's just hung out for the night. So yeah, again, it's an experience that probably a lot of people would just say, yeah, it is what it is. But you do a bit more research into it, and yeah, who knows? It
Mhm.
could be something a bit more, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. That's wild how it's sort of taken a lead to your house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And sitting up on my chair and going like, "This is my spot." And you're like,
yeah.
weird. Like, is there anything going on there? I don't know. And also, by the way, all of this occurred in there's a spot in Wexford called Cromwell's Fort. And Oliver Cromwell over here in England, he's in the UK, they like him. In Ireland, they don't like him. Because basically he would have been the guy that committed a lot of the genocide and stuff on Irish people. So basically Cromwell over here is almost like a curse of a name.
Mhm.
And so the fact that this happened up in that spot, and there was a lot that went on in Wexford with Cromwell's armies, like there was a massacre of the town's population in the center of town and stuff like that. So there's definitely like a spooky folkloric vibe to the area, I feel, because this would have been, the epicenter. This is Cromwell's Fort. This was the name of the spot. So
Mhm.
maybe there's a bit more to it. Who knows? I thought it was very interesting though, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So did the dog leave just the next day and you never
Yeah,
saw it again?
that was it. Never saw it again. Never saw it. Where we first seen it, I would have walked that like almost every day. Never seen it again. Never seen anyone walking the dog again. And like I would like, I'm a townie, so like I do bump into people. You walk the same routes, you see people all the
Yeah.
time, and never seen them. I don't know.
That's,
Strange one.
that is wild, man. What,
Real
what
weird.
I know. What do you think that was? I know that the black dog law and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple of things like if I was to get more woo about it and
Mhm.
get into the more spooky side of it, at the time, like two close relatives passed, can they communicate through pets? Some people think they can, right?
Mhm.
So could it be that perhaps? Maybe. That's the only thing I could speculate about. But at the time, like literally two very close family members passed, like I'd say probably 6 months apart from each other. I don't I don't hang my hat on that idea. Um, but it definitely didn't seem like it was a bad energy or anything like that. So it definitely seemed like some kind of a positive experience, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or just a party dog, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Could have
got
been a
back to
party house. Like
got
the
back to
Duff
his own. He's
man.
like, where have you been?
Yeah, yeah.
You
You
don't want
want
to
the
know.
stash? Throws up with a baggie in his mouth, you know.
Interesting, man. It's interesting you
Yeah.
say about the area as well and the history that it's got because I think there's something
Wexford's a lot.
there's
Yeah.
there seems to be something to that
Yeah, I think
where
so.
energy and there's something to that area of a high strangeness. There seems to
Hmm.
be reasons for why there is some areas that seem to have more high strangeness than others.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about that before on the pod. Is like, areas where there's been big atrocities committed or significant historical things happen. Like the question that we've asked on the podcast is, if you walked into Auschwitz without knowing the history at all, so you're just getting brought in blindfolded almost, and now you're going to stand in one of those gas chambers or something like that, would it feel oppressive to you without knowing that?
Mhm.
And that's a question that's important. And I actually think that that's probably something, not necessarily with Auschwitz, but that's probably something that should be tried if people
Mm,
are actually in any way serious about kind of paranormal things and
yeah.
a kind of a spirituality feeling or something like that. Because, um, you know, because you could make the counter argument that there's places that maybe there's fields in France that are gorgeous to walk around and take in, but then in World War I, people were losing their legs, getting shot, dying there, and we have no idea. So yeah, it's an interesting experiment to think about that. But if you have the knowledge that something occurred there, it definitely enhances it. Like maybe that makes you more perceptive to the area. You know,
Mhm.
maybe knowing is a good thing too, because maybe you're more attuned to if there are anything or if there is anything more high strangeness, you
Mhm.
are more attuned. It's like Loftus Hall. We have Loftus Hall close to here. You've probably heard of it, right? It's that
Mhm.
haunted building, and that's in Wexford. So they say that Loftus Hall, obviously carries an energy, and when I've been down there, I've definitely had the willies. I've never actually done a tour. Funnily enough, when I went down there, it was before they had reimagined it for tours,
Mhm.
and I felt an energy down there. I definitely felt, oh, this is a weird spot. Even in the summertime when it looks really nice, you just something. But again, is that pre-existing knowledge? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's because
Yeah.
you go to these old manor houses and you sort of can feel the history in there, but that's
Mm-hmm.
because you know that there's a big and you know the history of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's right if you go somewhere and something terrible could have happened there and you have no
Yeah.
knowledge of that, are you going
Yeah.
to feel it? And that's interesting, man. I mean,
Yeah. I'd like to know. Yeah.
I've been into to houses that just normal houses,
Mm-hmm.
and I get a weird vibe. And
Yeah.
your friend will say, "Yeah, we've got a ghost." A lot of people will say, "We've got a ghost,"
Ah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So you do a bit of field work, do you?
well, not really. I mean,
No.
I don't do the paranormal. I'd like to. I think I'd
Yeah.
like to.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because I do a paranormal podcast, but it scares me.
No, likewise, no, likewise. I'm with you. Like we haven't really done field work. Eamon has done a bit. Uh, he went to the Hellfire Club up in Dublin, which is kind of another kind of cool historical spot. But yeah, we haven't, and we're much the same. We're kind of curious to do it.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, like when I've been to any kind of space that's spooky, yeah, it does make me think. Like, but Loftus Hall is definitely one. You should check it out if you're coming over
Yeah,
at some
man.
point.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
now I know I can get a boat. I'm coming over.
Absolutely, man. Sure, come over. Yeah, we'll host you. Absolutely. We actually had there's Blurry Photos is a cryptid and sort of UFO podcast and stuff like that. David Flores, the host, he actually came over to see me, which is
Oh
quite cool.
wow.
We had collaborated on podcasts over the years, and he said like I'm doing a tour of the UK and Ireland, and I said come to Wexford, and so he made the trip down, and we had dinner and a chat and stuff. It was really cool, actually. It was nice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome, man.
yeah,
It's also because we make all these connections around the world
yeah,
to
yeah.
actually meet, shake hands,
Absolutely, it's cool,
buy
man.
you
That's
a
the cool thing
pint.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's
I
cool.
think a boat. I might be wrong on this, but I think I was told the boat takes 10 hours. I don't know if it's that
No,
long.
no, 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 no.
Oh, so
Well,
I've been misled there.
if it's from your neck of the woods, it might be longer. But if you drive up as far as Fishguard, in Wales, it's literally like 2.5, 3 hours.
Oh, okay, not
And you
bad
can
at
take
all.
your car. So I don't know if you drive, but you can literally take your car and
Yeah.
drive straight off the ball. Like it's quite cool. We've done it a couple of times for listener meetups. We'll drive over from Ireland, so we'll get the ferry and go to Wales. We've gone to Scotland as well. So yeah, that kind of thing.
Oh, awesome, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Scotland's a cool place as well.
Oh, great.
Spook
Yeah.
Edinburgh, man. I went there last year.
I need to go to Edinburgh. I've actually, so we did Loch Ness as a meet up for the listeners, and we did a Ben Nevis hike as well. So we went over. We had a blast. Like such a cool spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Really cool.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
I could get a flight to you as well, which will probably take 20 minutes.
That's literally. I think I'm thinking about flying over to London next month. It
Yeah,
literally takes 40 minutes.
yeah,
So
and
it's literally, and it
it
costs
seems
30.
cheaper. Yeah.
It's like I think I was looking at prices to €75. I think
Wow.
for the day, even for the day, if you wanted to fly over, so that is cheap. Like it's
That
quite
is,
handy.
man.
Yeah, yeah,
This is going to turn into a travel podcast.
yeah.
But
It is.
as I said, I went to Edinburgh last year and it cost,
Yeah,
I think it was about £150 the train. So I had to get a
yeah.
train to
Train is
London
mad, man.
and then up to Edinburgh.
Train is nuts.
Yeah, and
Nuts. God, it costs nuts money.
I looked at the flight, which is the airport. Bournemouth Airport is like 10 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
£16. I was like, what
Yeah,
have I
it's worth
done?
it. It's worth. It's actually worth it. Yeah, it's
What
worth it
have
to
I
fly,
done,
which is
man?
a shame because obviously flying, don't want to get into like a green podcast, but obviously flying
Yeah,
is all shite for the environment. You kind of sooner get on a train, but the price is nuts.
yeah, man.
You know?
I'm going at the moment. I'm going for what's cheapest, brother.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Look, we can't afford the luxury,
That's it. That's it. Going back to what you said about the paranormal investigators, and to the
Yeah,
shadow figure you saw, I had a
yeah.
very similar experience when I
Did
was
you?
21 as well.
Okay, fill us
Like,
in. What happened?
I didn't know about shadow figures and stuff like that then. I mean, I
Hmm.
was interested in paranormal, but not as I am now, like where it's
Hmm.
become my life. But
Hmm.
I woke up during the night, and there was a man standing over me, or the shape of a man,
Oh
and
yeah,
I thought it was my brother. So
yeah,
I've gone to try and punch him because he scared the
yeah,
crap out of me.
yeah, yeah.
And it turns out it wasn't my brother. He was on the other side of the room in bed. And my scream had woke him up because he
Oh yeah.
turned the light on and was like, "You okay? You okay?" And at the time, I didn't go, "Oh, I've just seen a shadow figure." I didn't know what it was really.
Oh
Like
yeah.
and it wasn't until later on, looking into this stuff, talking to
Mhm.
people and hearing podcasts, that I've
Mhm.
realized I've had that experience, man.
And
I've
that
seen the
sounds a lot like
shape.
Eamon's. Yeah.
Really?
Eamon's was very similar to that. So Eamon was, I think, much the same as that, walk up to a figure over his bed, and his was I'm fairly sure this is the right story, but his was like staticky, okay, so the body kind of like the shadow was like static TV almost. So very
Wow.
strange. Yeah, yeah, very creepy and weird kind of thing to
Yeah,
happen.
man. Yeah.
Hmm.
I've had it in the house I'm in now as well.
Really?
And I sort of put that down to when I started doing the
Mhm.
show, the podcast, I started getting some weird experiences. And I was like, is this because I'm talking about it, looking into, because I think that happens when you look into, they say the paranormal looks back
Yeah,
when
the
you
more
look,
you look at it, the more it looks back at you. Yeah.
and I feel like that happens because I've always had experiences throughout my life, but I really
Uh,
feel like in the last
yeah.
couple of years, it's sort of,
Well, we don't know. Like, it could be a sense that you attune yourself to. You know what I mean? So,
mhm,
like, again, it's an idea that we've kind of spitballed on the pod over the years. Is like, are there senses that we're not aware of that we have that you can kind of become more attuned to? Like, you know how when you're young, you taste a whiskey and you're like, oh, that's horrible. But then as you get older, you can actually taste the difference. Or such an Irish thing like that. I'm talking about
yes,
tasting whiskeys.
yeah,
But
it's true,
but
man.
you can get the flavors. Like, you know that a shite whiskey is more gluey, you know that a scotch has like the smoky peat flavor. You can actually taste it. That's because your senses are more attuned to it.
Yes,
And you've tasted and sampled it more. Same goes for even regular food, whatever. The more you know what spices are which and all that stuff, the easier it is to distinguish what's in a meal. Maybe it's the same thing with the paranormal. The more that you research it, the more that you're aware of all this stuff, maybe you can identify things that other people mightn't even see or might think are just more mundane, kind of
mhm,
normal everyday things. So we don't really know, and that's really the long and short of it. Is like no one really has the answers definitively to what happens on the other side. Do you know what I mean? We can only speculate. We can say, I'm not personally a religious man. I'd say I'm a little bit spiritual, but not major. Um, and so all you can do is speculate. But we've looked into stuff long enough now that we're like, yeah, there's probably a little bit more to it. Do you know what I mean? Than at least what the average, say, hardcore atheist would think. So
mhm.
yeah, it's interesting to play with for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that the more you open yourself to it, the more you're going to experience. I think
The
that
more you
there's
hear too.
the
You've
more
probably
you,
heard great stories. Like
oh man, yeah.
you've been there, you have what, 200 and something episodes now?
Yeah, I've just gone
Yeah.
past 200. Yeah, man.
Congrats. Yeah, yeah, congrats. That's a
Thank you.
good milestone. That's yeah, so you've probably heard so many stories to where even if 75% of them you're flagging in your brain is going, maybe I don't fully believe that or something.
Mhm.
Like even if there's a small percentage that are legitimate, then yeah, it's very interesting to think about. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I like to say I believe everyone until there's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
reason till there's a reason not to. But even if one person is telling the truth,
yeah.
it's
That's
wild. That's it.
that's it. So you're in a different sphere than what we are, where I suppose we're not labeled as what you would call like a skeptic podcast. We're not out there trying to, prove everything is wrong or anything
Yeah.
like that. But we will say, like, if we think there's something that we think is maybe someone's lying or it's whatever, we will say that. But I think that's important because
Mhm.
I think that with your podcast, people that believe are going to listen to it and they're going to get 100% out of it and they're going to go, yeah, I've had that happen, whatever. But there might be people who listen to your podcast and they might think, oh, that person's talking rubbish. I don't want to listen to that. So we kind of try and attack it from an angle where people that have that doubt in their mind can actually play with it, have fun with it, and they might be swung a little bit into thinking, you know what, actually, maybe there is a bit more to it. Like, we're not trying to change people's minds or anything, but I think sometimes if you like one of our like best mates on the podcast, biggest collaborators, such a nice guy, is Tim from Strange Familiars.
Yeah, I
And
loved him.
yeah, he's brilliant. He's just such a nice guy. And his podcast is very much like yours, where it's like these are real experiences and this is what happened and stuff like that. And that has to exist and it's fantastic. But yeah, we want to kind of present something a little bit different where we can have fun with it and maybe open the door for people who are kind of just flirting with the paranormal. Maybe they're not fully, they just want to get their feet wet. So we're kind of trying to bridge the gap, I suppose. Then they can get into your stuff, then they can get into Tim's stuff. And that's kind of the angle that we like. Do you know, that's
Yeah,
kind of where we're
yeah.
approaching that from.
You know, and I think that's cool as well. I think
Mhm.
it's good to be skeptical, I think, and to be open-minded, to know that
To a degree, yeah.
yeah, not
Yeah.
everything's like I'm the worst at jumping to the paranormal straight away,
Mhm.
and I fully admit that. You know,
Yeah,
I'll,
yeah, well,
I'll,
nothing wrong with it, son.
I'll see
Nothing
that
wrong
I'll see that blurry Bigfoot picture, and I'm like, yeah,
with
that's
it.
real, man. That's real. I've
I'm
shared it
like that
all
with
over.
some things, you know. I'm like that with some things. Don't get me wrong, like, you know what I mean? Like, there are certain things within the high strangeness banner, shall we say, that like I would love to believe. Do you know what I mean? Like, I love all the dinosaur cryptids. I love all
Yes.
that stuff. And that was our first episode, was literally Michaela and Membe, because I love that stuff. And anything that could support the existence of a true cryptid in the truest sense, which is, you know, an animal that everyone thinks is extinct but is actually out there, that is what I would love. Like, I really love even the thylacine. If the thylacine was found, there's been a lot of compelling stuff recently actually about the thylacine, guys with skeletons, guys with there's that really good hoax recently, which was actually very well done too. All of that stuff I love. Like, I really love that true cryptid thing. And I think it's just because you're the age too. You probably see Jurassic Park in the cinema like I did.
Yes. Yes.
And you know what I mean? You're hook, line, and sinker at that point, you know.
Do you remember and they're still about, I'm sure, the Guinness Book of Records
Oh
books,
yeah,
the big
yeah, yeah.
thick books?
Started in Wexford, by the way. There's a bit of trivia for you.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So
wow.
yeah. So there's a bit of trivia that I don't know whether it was the very first Guinness record or the book was started in Wexford. Yeah, it's like a cool little trivia thing.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When I was a kid, man, I always I think they were
Brilliant.
yearly, and I
Yeah,
always
they
used to
were
get them,
yearly
man.
annual. Yeah, yeah.
And I
They were
used to
class.
flick through them, obviously just reading the pictures and looking at the pictures. And
Yeah, yeah.
there was a picture of the Patterson Gimlin film in there,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and obviously it was just the pictures of it, like the frames, and I was like, wow, man, like
That's so cool.
that's real. No,
Yeah.
still, I know obviously the Patterson Gimlin film, it's controversial. Some people say
Yeah.
it's real. I tend to think that is real. That is
Yeah. Well,
just my opinion. But
that's a lot to do. But like, listen, we've done a lot on Patterson Gimlin over the years. As a matter of fact, our live show was about the Patterson Gimlin film, really.
mhm,
And for every argument that makes it look suspect, there's a counter argument that makes it look real. And so you could say it has really good defense and prosecutors, you know,
yeah,
with good lawyers on either side.
yeah,
It literally does have it's a very strange one. I do think you've probably seen some of those kind of recreations. A lot of them do miss the mark. There's one or two of the recreations where people rubbished, but I was kind of saying when I seen it, I was like, you know what though? Put that at a far enough distance away, get a shitty camera, like maybe it would look similar, but
mhm,
I don't know where I lie on it still, to be quite honest with you. I think the funny thing with Patterson Gimlin is like, you know, like what are the odds that if you or I find definitive evidence that ghosts exist, right? Everyone's going to say, of course, it's the guys with podcasts about high strangeness that find this, right? Of course
yes,
it is. So
yeah,
they're going
yeah,
to say that we're probably trying
yeah,
to do a hoax or we're trying to big up our platform.
mhm,
So that is what happened with Patterson. Like that is literally what happened with that guy. Like he
yeah,
pursued Bigfoot. There's a lot of suspect stuff that he had done drawings of female Bigfoot and stuff way before he had seen it and stuff. And like I'm on record saying this, people refute it to me, and I'm fine with that. That's fine. Personally, you know, he has one sketch which lines up exactly with how he filmed Bigfoot. And so like it's in that
really,
same hand pose and everything. So then you're looking at it going, there's a lot of smoke here, there's surely a bit of fire.
mhm,
But again, I'm still open-minded, you know what I mean? If someone turned around to me tomorrow and said, no, this is real, there's DNA proof or something, we found this.
mhm,
There's a lot of compelling evidence. Even like I didn't realize this was something I only heard recently, but something like gorillas, like there's so-called skeletons of gorillas. Like there's like barely any examples of gorillas
Hmm.
found. Like people don't find their skeletons or anything like that. And so that's the first thing a lot of people say about Bigfoot is, oh no, we'd find fossil records, we'd find evidence, we'd find this or that. Well, not necessarily, because gorillas are walking among us right now, and they aren't that common. They're not that commonly found. Their
Yeah.
skeletons aren't commonly found, and the same goes for human species, where we're still finding offshoots of humans like that Homo floresiensis, I think, the
Hmm.
Flora people or whatever. That's all relatively new discoveries, and that's real. So who's to say that, even if you want to get a bit abstract, who's to say that there's not some kind of hominid species that are very like us, that are just more hairy, and that existed somewhere very remote for a time, kind of their population dwindled, maybe there's only a handful left. Like, there's nothing really to say against that. Only, oh no, man has seen everything, but we haven't really. There's a lot of places that are still fairly wild, you know?
Yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of untouched lands, as you say. So
yeah, yeah.
there's definitely stuff out there in our oceans and in our forests that we don't touch. There's creatures out there that we have not found yet.
For sure, man. Yeah, for
Surely.
sure, for sure. Well, there's still stuff popping up. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
there's still random birds and things like that showing up. We did actually the very first mini fuzz we did because a creature was discovered that everyone thought was extinct. It was a bird, and the bird, I think, was about the size of a chicken, maybe a little bit smaller. I think it was in New Zealand, and that's it's about as populated as Ireland, New Zealand.
Hmm.
So you would think that they would have known that this animal is truly extinct. But then no, it pops up again. Breeding population, they're starting to bounce back again. Everyone thought they were extinct. So yeah, at times this can happen. It
Yeah.
does exist. I think a thylacine could absolutely still exist. Like I wouldn't be at all surprised if thylacines popped up in small numbers in the future.
Hmm. Yeah, man.
Be cool. They're cool
So
looking animal.
yeah, for sure, 100%. I find that so interesting that there's things out there that we're yet to discover.
Yeah, man,
I-
that's cool.
I've talked to a lot of people in the UK
Mhm.
that have seen or claim to have seen Bigfoot and Dogman and things like that. What's your thoughts on cryptids in the UK?
Yeah, so I think the most likely one in the UK is wild cats, and they're
Hmm.
again kind of a true cryptid, right? Because
My mother-in-law, I'm sorry to
yeah,
jump
no, go
in.
ahead.
My mother-in-law 20 years ago saw what she describes as a panther in
Oh yeah,
Essex.
I believe it.
And at the time, because I going back, like there was a few weeks where there was every day the front page of our local newspaper was talking
Mhm,
about a panther in the wild.
mhm.
And obviously I meet my mother-in-law a few years later, her telling me this, and I'm like, that's amazing. She's not even that bothered by it, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
that's amazing. You saw a black panther. She's like, yeah. And we go through it every time I see her. We'll talk about it again.
yeah,
But
yeah.
so, yeah, sorry, man, to cut you off. I just had
No, you're
to.
grand, dude. That's exactly kind of the thing. It's like, yeah, it seems like they're a real thing. Like before we went over to Snowdon for our meetup, um, that was in 2022, I think. Maybe 23. When there was actually sightings of cats in Snowdonia at the time. So we were like, oh, cool, shit, we might find a big cat over there. Didn't, unfortunately. But again, it's one of those things like there's been really compelling evidence that there's a big cats in the UK. And what that means is, you know, chances are they were put there by people who kept wild cats, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Who doesn't want to keep a wild cat, right? Um, but the cats got too big, they released them, and either they're solo or they find some kind of mating partner, whatever. What that means, though, is if an animal that big is able to kind of slip under the radar so much, maybe there are different things around. I do think personally that the UK and Ireland is probably a little bit too small to find a Bigfoot. I just think like, so if you know the history of like animals that have gone extinct on the British Isles and Ireland, generally speaking, they were hunted to extinction. And
Mhm.
they were hunted for either food because they were pests or because people just wanted rid of them. wolves were a big one here in Ireland, where I think the last wolf died in like maybe the early 19th century. I can't remember, but at the time, you know what I mean, there was concerted efforts, and you've seen, you know, in England, those big hunts that the guys go on, packs of dogs, like they're out hunting.
Mhm.
And in such a small island, maybe you would think that other things would turn up if that was happening on the regular. So I don't know personally. So it's a joke on the podcast. Metaphysical Bigfoot is like one of the things that we laugh about. Eamon believes fully in metaphysical Bigfoot, which is basically that maybe these creatures are some kind of other, that they're something spiritual rather than physical.
Mhm.
So if you're seeing a Bigfoot, you're seeing a dogman or anything like that, you're actually seeing, yeah, it's some kind of manifestation of the other. And if that's the case, absolutely, of course, then there's room for
Yeah.
anything. If I'm to go on like a biological kind of sense, I would say it's less likely. But I do really like the idea of big cats and stuff like that in Britain, and I do think they exist over there for sure.
Yeah, man.
Um,
I'm sort of in that camp as well with Bigfoot and
mhm.
cryptids like that in the UK. That if they're
Mhm.
here, there is probably a supernatural element to them. Well,
Yeah.
because in the wild, as you say, there's not enough room. Probably, I know we have got big forests where you could probably go missing for a little while. I don't know,
Mhm.
but yeah, for something like that, you would have to think that there's more of a supernatural in and out of portals, whatever it is.
People also don't give credit enough to how easy it is to go missing in a very small amount of space.
Mhm.
Even when like that poor Jay Slater kid, you probably heard about that one from England. Yeah, the guy that
Yeah,
went missing. It was a Tenerife,
very
maybe.
sad in Tenerife. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it was very close to where he was last seen and last
Mhm.
pinged, and it took them weeks to find him, like literally
Yeah,
weeks, just because
yeah.
it was in that kind of a rough area. And that can happen. Like, I mean, you go up to the Cairngorms in Scotland, you know, it's like super rolling hills, and like we
Mhm.
drove through it on the way up, and it was beautiful place. But yeah, probably very rugged in places, and there's definitely places up there where like man mightn't be going through there at all for years at a time. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
we sometimes I think we overestimate how populated the islands are, but then at the same time, there are a lot of roads and things that go through these areas. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of wild spots still for sure.
Yeah. And if you slip, man, I mean, I've been out in the forest and you can slip, you can get lost. Anything can
Break a leg.
happen. Yeah,
You
break
break
a
a
leg.
you break a leg, badly injure your ankle. Like I was on a hike maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Like it was a fairly popular, well walked hike, so he was okay. But like literally a boardwalk path, you know, and whatever happened, he broke his ankle, you know, and so it took like 4 teams of mountain rescues to get up to him, and this is in a well-tracked area, and so yeah, you think about it, you're in the middle of nowhere, or something like that happens, you're a goose, you know.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I've had it. I've got a forest behind me where I take my dog every day.
Mhm.
And it's not super, it's pretty big. Like you can
Yeah.
spend all day in there walking around and seeing new things. But I go there all the time. I know pretty much where I'm going when I'm in there. I
Mhm.
got lost. I got lost
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
a little while ago where I've got the kids with me as well. And I'm
Mhm.
like trying to stay cool because I'm like, well, yeah, everything's fine. And then they want to drink and I'm like, oh man, I
Yeah.
don't know where we are. And
Yeah. Oh no,
eventually
it
I
can
found my
easily
way
happen.
out. But
It can easily happen. Like we, you know, on the hikes that we've done, you kind of have to overstress the how dangerous these things can be. I mean,
Mhm.
I only seen a video on YouTube recently. I was watching guys on Snowdon, and there was one particular guy I watched. He was probably in his 50s. He was hiking with his buddy, like was all happy go lucky. Yeah, we're going up on Snowdon on a ridge. At the end of the video, the guy's like, "Yeah, my friend died. He just fell off the mountain, and that was that." And you're like,
No
"Oh."
way.
So it's you have to kind of remind people of that, like that it is extremely dangerous wherever you go. You know, woods are
Hmm.
the same. I was only reading the other day about a guy. You're talking about woods that are so small that can be dangerous. He walked into a forest where it was a forestry, and so some of the trees had been downed and left downed. And you know what happens is like the canopy kind of grows over those trees, and you get this kind of false floor, shall we say, and
Hmm.
he fell down into it, like, and these can be 2 meters deep, these holes, because the trees are kind of stacked on top of each other in a weird way. Falls straight down, really messes himself up. He actually said he fell down twice, and he finally did manage to get out, but he said he completely got disorientated. Then he fell down one of these holes, and he was lucky to get out. But imagine you didn't get out. Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine you
Yeah,
broke
man.
your ankle down there and you're stuck in a fucking 2 meter
Yeah,
deep tree hole. You know, it's not
yeah.
nice. Horrible.
Got no signal on your phone
Yeah.
because without
Yeah.
our phones, man, that's it. Like,
Oh,
was
it is. Yeah. We're over
would
reliant on it for sure. Out in the
yeah,
wilderness. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. I'm not going out anymore, man.
No, no, let's stay inside and make podcasts. Let's just make
Much
podcasts.
safer in here.
We can talk to lads that go outside, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
we'll
They
get
can tell us what
we'll
it's
get
like.
their experiences. What did you
Yeah,
say?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the best way.
So I think you might have answered this, but what is your favorite cryptid? What is it?
Yeah, dinosaur cryptids. Probably Mekele Membe is the name. It's an African name. I think I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah.
I do like, I mean, I love a bit of Bigfoot, love a bit of Nessie, you know. How's about you? What's your favorite?
Oh, it's a difficult question, but
Yeah,
Bigfoot is probably
yeah.
my go-to. I think so. When I started looking into cryptids and stuff,
Mhm.
Bigfoot and Nessie are like the
Mhm.
main. And then you find all the Mothman and all these
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Dog Man, and you're like,
Bigfoot is the
wow,
Beatles,
yeah,
Loch Ness Monsters, Rolling Stones, and then Mothman is like a bit more psychedelic. He's like Led Zeppelin or
yeah.
something. Do you know what I mean? He's when things start to get weird and heavy and shit. You know. uh,
And then there's so many, man, and it just goes on.
Oscar.
And
Oh yeah. Me and Eamon had a very honest conversation when we first started the podcast, and a lot of people do ask us this. It's like, when are you going to run out of material? You know, like you're doing a cryptid podcast, you're surely only going to get like a year out of it. I'm doing it 4 years,
yeah,
and to be
and it's
honest,
awesome, man.
cheers. And to be honest, like we've only really covered sort of what you would call tentpole things. Yeah, we've done a couple of the more weird, obscure things for sure. We've done a couple of more weird, obscure hauntings, things like that. But like, oh, there's still lots to talk about. Still lots to talk about.
Yeah, I don't think I'll
And
ever run out of topics,
no,
man.
I don't think so. No, because there's just so much going on, and of course, there's still people actively like ghost hunting, actively looking for Bigfoot, actively doing that. So there's always going to be something there, right? For sure,
Mhm.
always.
Yeah, man.
Mhm.
So for us guys in the UK,
Mhm.
we get a lot of fairy lore,
Yeah, yeah.
gnomes,
Mhm.
goblins, things like that. Where do you stand with the Fae?
Yeah, the fair. Well, Ireland is Jesus. I mean, it's probably the home of all of that. I would
Mm.
say even. Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff with that. Leprechauns as well are
Yeah.
would actually be classed as a kind of a fae. Yeah, I believe in all of that. Like there's a deep folklore that runs through Irish history that is very much respectful of that and very much treats it with respect. Yeah, it just treats it with respect. It's really cool to see. Like the more you go back and look in history, the amount of respect that like the elders, like say a couple of generations ago, the amount of
Hmm.
respect that they give the fae or supernatural things is really cool. And you kind of, you look at it and you go, all right, like this is probably why we are the way we are. It's why myself and Eamon started a podcast, why you started a podcast is those undercurrents, that the folkloric undercurrents that run through all of this stuff. I think that the fae and that stuff, whether it's just a superstition or not, I don't know, but a lot of it seems to be culturally important at the very least.
Hmm.
It's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of stories. I'm going through my head here trying to remember some of the ones, because we did a Samhain episode a good while ago. I think it was maybe 3 years ago. But there's a lot of stuff about it. It's so deep in Ireland. There's just so much of it that almost you could be here all day talking about it. There's also like there was one called the Slua. It's another Irish one. Me and Tim and Eamon did an episode about, which is kind of like a bird, like spooky, kind of creepy entity, which again ties in with the Fae.
Hmm.
We actually haven't done a true fairy episode yet. Actually, we haven't tackled that particular angle. But yeah, I think whether there are little trickster spirits out there, who knows? But it's a cool thing to think about, or at least to blame people for, or
Yeah.
blame something on. You know, how's about you? What do you think?
Yeah, but I find it interesting that they're obviously embedded in our culture in the
Yeah,
UK, but
yeah,
they're all around the world as well, and they
hmm
might have different names. They
hmm
might be slightly different in the way people describe
hmm
them and how they look, but they're pretty much the same thing. Like small creatures,
hmm
tricksters, like you said. And I
Yeah,
find that interesting, man, because it's like we're not all connect. We are connected now, but we
yeah,
wasn't always. So
no,
how do we all have the same?
exactly.
Which I find
So
interesting.
yeah, so we in the early days we did a lot on Native American
Hmm.
folklore, First Nations, and that definitely does tie in with a lot of the stuff over here. So you've got like the Nymerigar was one of them. I think the Nymerigar was the one that had the actual mummy. I don't know if you ever seen that little statue looking thing. A
Hmm.
lot of people
Yeah,
say it's like an alien. Sometimes people throw that around that it's some kind of alien mummy. That was super interesting actually. And again, that does tie in with leprechauns. Again, ties in with, as I was saying earlier, the Homo flores, those little small people.
yeah,
They were basically real life hobbits. So you would wonder then maybe at one point in time there was something like that going on. Um, I don't know why they always attribute it to little people in particular. Why it's little people that are more mischievous, I don't know. But yeah, especially with Native American stuff because they are so geographically isolated from us, right? Like we never had interaction with them. But yet, when you stack up like Irish folklore with native folklore or even British folklore, they all have similar ideas. The same as Aboriginal folklore. There's one that we had done some Australian stuff, and there's a lot of Australian folklore the indigenous folklore from Australia that ties in a lot with our stuff. So it's super cool. Like it's
yeah,
um you would wonder why that happens. Is it just human nature? It's like there's a term and I think it's biology, it's called convergent evolution, where sometimes animals, like a good example is a dog and a hyena, right? They're two
hmm,
totally different species, but they've evolved to look the same and kind of act the same. They're pack animals, four legs, they look like canines, whatever, but they're not. Is it that kind of thing, right? Where it's like a folkloric evolution where we're coming up with similar topics and similar ideas, but yeah, they mightn't be exactly the same, but it's just like a human nature thing to kind of
hmm,
come up with these ideas. I don't know. It's
yeah.
interesting though.
It is interesting, man.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
like every culture's got a Bigfoot. Like we've got
Every culture's got a Bigfoot. Every
the
every
wild
culture has
man.
a wild man. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. That's 100% a thing.
Yowie in Australia.
Yowie, yeah, there's the Yowie. I'm trying to think the native. So Sasquatch is obviously one, but there is another name. I said it's like stick people or something they were called.
Yeah.
There's something. Again, it's been a long time since we did Bigfoot episodes, so I'm kind of rusty on Bigfoot. But if anyone's listening and they're interested, we actually have like a series that I think we've probably done 4 or 5 Bigfoot episodes where we kind of cover different ideas. But yeah, the wild man has always been there. Is it we an idea that we kind of had was is it just was it a folkloric thing for like tribe leaders and elders to be like they don't go near those wild men. Those wild men are like they don't have the same values we have. They don't do the same we do. Maybe oh they're cannibals, they're this, they're that. Is it just strictly an other that they've kind of put out, or are they like legitimately maybe a more primitive kind of Neanderthal species at one point in time? But like
Mhm.
that all happened in our like that's the interesting thing is like we're humans. At one point in time, we were fighting saber-tooth tigers, we were fighting mastodons, we were fighting all that stuff, right? Um, in I think it's yeah, in North America, we were killing giant armadillos with shells the size of Volkswagen Beetles, and we were sleeping inside the shell as a hunting hut out on out on hunts, right?
Man.
So it's nuts stuff, right? They're called glyptodonts, I think, if you want to look them up, they're really, really interesting. But so at one point in time, we were out doing that, right? So it's no wonder that folkloric stuff, like that this kind of stuff pops up, like that the idea of cryptids pops up because humans at one point in time were fighting massive creatures.
Yeah, yeah.
We were up against real big, scary creatures. Like in Australia, they were fighting birds that were around the size of ostriches, but even taller, but like way more scary looking, big, and as well giant lizards, bigger than Komodo dragons, called megalania or megalania. I don't know what way you pronounce it, but those things were like huge, big, scary looking, almost dinosaur looking creatures. They were probably I want to say like they're over 2 meters long, big, like XL Komodo dragons basically, and we were fighting and killing those things. So yeah, there's no wonder that folklore has elements of dragons, has elements of wild men. Because yeah, at times we were probably directly competing with creatures that resembled scary dragons,
Yeah.
creatures that resembled big Bigfoots, big feet or
Yeah.
Sasquatches, whatever you want to call them.
And
It's super. It's cool, man. That was kind of an idea we had. We did back in the day when we first started the podcast. I started a little series called "The Mean Pleistocene," which was basically our humans' early evolution and how folklore and our early experiences could represent what we're seeing and hearing about nowadays, where it's like an oral tradition passed down for
Mhm.
people to say about a wild man. Watch out in the woods for a wild man. Because like there are so just an idea, like the Aboriginal people in Australia, they would have come up against these giant lizards, say for example. So is it possible that a village elder, a head of the tribe or whatever, whichever person kept that oral tradition, that folklore, is it possible it could have only been 3 or 4 grandfathers ago where they actually fought these creatures for real?
Yeah, man.
So yeah, of course it's all getting passed down. So you're hearing an account that yeah might have happened a long time ago, but it did happen.
Mm.
I think it was we had a brother Richard on recently as a guest. He's fantastic guest, really good. And he was saying that it's Irish travelers. Their thing is their folklore is like if it happens to like your granddad, it happened to you. So when you're telling the story, you're telling it as your granddad.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that's cool too. So then you're looking at it and saying, right, well maybe that's happening a little bit too. Very interesting
Mhm.
stuff.
It's just embedded in our
Yeah,
DNA,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. And there's a purpose too, right? Because the purpose at the time was to warn people and to let people know that you should be afraid of this creature, or you should. This is how you act when you see this creature.
Hmm.
And so there was a purpose to it. It was purposeful. So you could say maybe nowadays there's not a purpose, but it still exists. That
Yeah.
whole idea exists, which is cool.
It's just in us. I think it
Hmm.
was, I don't know, I think it was Joe Rogan I was listening to that was talking about
Hmm.
this,
Yeah,
how we're scared of the dark because obviously back in the day when we we're
yeah,
sleeping in the caves, creatures would come in and they'd get us then when we couldn't see them. And that's
makes
why
sense.
it's just embedded in our DNA.
Yeah, it
It's
makes sense.
interesting, man, that we
Yeah,
carry that down and it's
it
still
makes
in
sense.
us.
And it makes sense why people suffer with anxiety disorders and stuff like that. Because if
Yes.
if you think about like you live in like a busy city, we're talking about say if you were living in London, you're living in Dublin, like it's probably the healthy response to be anxious, actually, to be quite honest
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Because because
Stay on your toes, man.
it's so removed from how we lived for hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years, that yeah, you probably anxiety is probably the correct response.
Hmm.
So it's funny, yeah, it's I suppose we're more removed from traditional ways now. So yeah, I
Yeah.
always like when I catch myself feeling anxious, I'm like, yeah, you're probably right to be anxious.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a
Yeah.
good thing. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting,
yeah,
man. It
absolutely.
really
Yeah,
is
yeah. Yeah,
interesting.
for sure. For sure.
Have you seen any strange lights in the sky? I'm going to get to the UFOs now. What
Oh
was
yeah,
your
lovely, lovely.
thoughts on UFOs? Have you seen anything that you can't explain?
Have I personally? I don't think so. Do I believe in UFOs? Yeah. So I think there's enough stuff lately to where they're kind of flirting with it, and some people have the idea that they're doing this deliberately to kind of distract us. So it's like Project Bluebeam, I think, is the one Eamon always references on the pod, but it's like yeah, they're using that to deliberately distract us. Like it's smoke and mirrors. It's a government created idea that there are aliens, and anything that you hear about or see is government controlled, right? I actually believe that it's more likely that it isn't. I think that there's so many governments that are kind of putting out ideas that there might be something. I think there's so much stuff out there, people talking about it. Do I, excuse me, do I think that people I don't know. Like, I'm trying to say, like, do I think that all of the main sort of UFO guys at the minute, do I think that they're legitimate? I actually don't know personally.
Mhm.
Um, I really want to believe Bob Lazar, for example. Really want to
Yeah, I
believe
find
Bob
Bob Lazar
Lazar.
very interesting.
Really want to believe him.
Yeah.
Um, Again, it's just another guy where I'm like, there's a lot of smoke around there, and I'm like, can I fully hang my hat on what he says? I'd love to, because it's such a cool story. Like, his story is
He's
amazing.
really stuck to his story though. Like it's
He has,
the same.
yeah.
And when did he come out? Was it like the
Oh,
'70s or '80s
yeah, it
or?
was 70s or 80s. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I'd say it was probably late 70s, early 80s, right? Had to have
Mhm.
been. Um,
And he
I,
said he
I,
came out for like protection reasons, wasn't it? That was his.
that's
If
what he
if I
said.
if if I put it out there, I'm safer than if I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I mean, I find
I,
that very interesting.
I'm more inclined to believe Commander Fravor is that his name? Do you remember that guy? He was on Joe Rogan as well.
Yes.
He had some really good sightings and accounts that I'm like, yeah, I believe that guy. Like, 100% when I heard him, I was like, yeah, I believe what he's saying. I think the stuff is really compelling. Um, and yeah, like, I watched an interesting video recently. You should check it out if you haven't. It's a guy, and the name escapes me now, but he does a really good video about why it's just as likely that there's no aliens in the universe, as it is likely.
Hmm.
And it makes perfect sense, actually, because, like, all these scientists are saying, like, oh no, it has to happen based on, but it's basically, look, I can't really describe it properly as he would. So if anyone's curious, just search that, like aliens aren't real or might not be real kind of video.
Hmm.
And it's quite compelling, just because he described, basically, because we have no evidence, it means it's just as likely that there is no aliens. But yeah, I think there's, I mean, you would think so, right? You would think that this is not some kind of unique one-off fluke. Um, but then again, that opens the door. If it is a one-off fluke, right, then I would be way more inclined to be like a man of faith at that point. You're like, wait, if we are a one-off fluke, like, what does that mean, right?
Yeah,
Like, is
that's even
that,
more wild.
isn't it? Isn't it? It's more. That's exactly it. I think it's more kind of mundane and, like, yeah, whatever, that there are aliens. If it's a one-off thing, like, if we're this one-off unique thing, then I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
like, this is nuts. Like,
that
this is
is.
well mad, right?
Yeah, man. I've seen things in the sky I can't explain. You
Have you?
know
What,
that
what what kind of stuff?
that I would say were UFOs. So
Yeah,
when I was 14,
yeah,
we was playing football in the street, as we
yeah.
always did, and it was
Back in
just
the
a
day.
summer's day, yeah, back in the day,
Yeah,
and there was just this thing in the sky
yeah,
that we don't know what it was, but all I describe it now is it looked like a futuristic building, and I know that
yeah.
sounds wild. I know
Oh
it
yeah.
does,
No, no. There's
but
actually sightings and stuff like that. Yeah, for
it
sure.
was just it was well up in the sky, like really
Yeah,
far away, but we could see it, and all the boys are standing around. And we're like, "What is that?"
yeah.
And we was watching it for however long, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it was, and it was like orange and silver, and it was, yeah, we couldn't make out what it was basically. And I just got this picture in my mind of what it looked like, and it just looks like a building that you'd get in Dubai, and someone's
Oh
just
yeah,
put it high in the sky, and it's just there. And we're all
yeah,
watching it. And what bugs me is we just started playing football again. Like, but didn't
yeah.
see it fly off, didn't see it
Just
disappear,
yeah,
didn't even really talk about it that much.
yeah.
And we just carried on. And then I was doing, when I started the podcast, I was
Uh-huh.
on Paranormal Heart podcast with Cat Wald,
Cool.
and I was
Right.
talking experiences. And this memory just came back, and I just told her, and I
Yeah,
was just, I was like, that's weird, 'cause I've not even thought about that. I forgot
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
Like, how can you forget that? My brother listened to the show, and he rung me up a couple of days later, and he was like, bruv, what was that we saw that day? I remember
yeah,
seeing it. What was it? And I'm like, I don't
yeah.
know, man. It was cool. It was a cool thing to see, but don't know what it was.
Have you heard of or seen that Chinese UFO, like city in the sky type UFO?
What is it? A video?
Yeah, there is a video, I think.
Oh,
Pretty
I
sure I've seen a
prob
video back in the day. But there's also, jeez, I wish I knew what episode it was we did this in, but it could be, we did an episode I think called Angels in Space. It might be that episode, but I'm not sure. We did a couple of UFO things around that time. But um basically there is a UFO that is described as a city in the sky. So like what you said you've seen has been seen by other people.
Hmm.
And I think it was in China.
Yeah.
So do check that out, because a lot of the time we found this when we were doing Bigfoot stuff. A lot of stuff from China doesn't get out. So like I went digging for Chinese Bigfoot, which is I think it's called the Yaren. So we have a full episode about it if anyone's
Oh
interested.
wow. Yeah.
Um, but so I went rooting through like Chinese sources for Bigfoot. Just on a whim. I just said, you know what? We never heard about Chinese Bigfoot. Let me go and look for a Chinese Bigfoot. Found a load of stuff. And I'm like, right, there's an episode. So
Yeah.
yeah, so a lot of the stuff that happens in China gets completely lost because obviously it's very hard for us to Google and search. So while there may be people in China talking about it, there could be cryptid podcasts in China, maybe not.
Yeah.
But the it happens over there. It happens over there. There's
Interesting.
definitely that's a whole line of research
Isn't
that people don't look at enough.
isn't there a national park? It might not be in China, but I think it is, of where they've got like a Bigfoot area, basically. That's
Yeah,
where they've got
yeah,
the statues of like a mother Bigfoot kissing a
yeah.
baby Bigfoot. Is that right?
That's yeah. I think that's in the Aaron episode we did for sure.
Oh wow.
I'm 90% sure that we talk about that. Like I said, we've done 500 episodes
Yeah,
nearly
it gets
now.
difficult, man. Yeah.
So it's fairly crazy. Like your brain
Yeah.
is just like, I can only hold so much information. Fuck off.
Yes.
You know?
And then you probably get a lot. What's your favorite episode? And you're like,
Oh yeah,
just all
yeah.
goes into one, man. I don't
It
know.
does, man. Yeah, it does. No, we have some cool episodes where you see with us, like it probably annoys some people. Our podcast is very much it's probably 60% subject matter and 40% me and Eamon as friends, having the banter, having the chat. I know that there's plenty of people who don't like banter podcasts, but we are very much that because we're just mates
Yeah.
talking about this shit, you know.
I love it, man.
Yeah, yeah. And so some of them go off the rails. Those are the ones I remember because they're just you get a good laugh and you have to crack with them. But that is kind of essential knowledge going into our podcast. That yeah, we're not. It's not a podcast where you get in like say yourself, maybe your strange familiars, where it's like we get in, this is the content, boom, it's out. We can be annoying, I'm sure, to plenty of listeners to probably listen and go, these fucking bastards are trying to talk about some bullshit and I want to hear about Bigfoot. But we do it on purpose, you know, we're just kind of wind
Yeah.
up merchants, so we're kind of intentionally playing with people there. But yeah, so horses for courses, I suppose, you know.
Your podcast awesome, man. Your
Yeah,
podcast
cheers,
is
man. Cheers.
awesome. I
Yours is
love
great
that.
too, yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the fact that you have fun. You get
Yeah.
serious, you talk about some cool stuff, but you have fun as well. I think that's cool, man. I like that.
Just try and be as broad as possible and appeal to as many people as possible. Like a lot of people, you see, our core audience love when we're being stupid.
Mhm.
So we do have a sort of a stupid quota that we have to put into episodes. But yeah, we do try and as well have something. There's a bit of everything. We'll try in a bit of everything. We just try and make it so that like we don't want to be we never want to feel pressured to provide a certain type of content. We want to just be us. And we want to just the day that we're not us is the day where we're not having fun, and myself or Eamon just wouldn't do the podcast anymore. I don't think like we have to be able to be Rob and Eamon, and that's for the better for some people and for the worse for other people. But what I would say to people is like there's so many podcasts that stick to the subject matter that are absolutely fantastic. So they're out there too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can all exist. It's free media, right?
100%, man. That's what I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
about podcasting.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
Great.
your tribe. You find your vibe. You
My
get your
favorite
tribe.
podcast is Atletico Mints. Have you ever listened to Atletico Mints?
I don't think I have. I'll check it
No,
out though.
so do you know Bob Mortimer?
Yes. Ah, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So it's Bob Mortimer's podcast, and it's supposed to be a football podcast, but they don't fucking talk about football at
Oh,
all.
I
Like,
think I know. I do know what you
yeah,
mean.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
My
absolutely
friend was
hilarious,
telling me
man.
about this. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's legitimately like myself and Eamon. Like Eamon had never really listened to it, and I grew up on Bob Mortimer. I fucking love him.
Yeah, he's a funny.
And myself and Eamon listened to it when we were going to Wales, and like we were creased in the car laughing at just the absurdity of it. So Atletico Mints, yeah, it's my favorite. Love it. Great stuff.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Podcasting special. I've got to tell you this. When I
yeah,
first found you,
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it was Strange Familiars or Monster Fuzz. I was
Uh-huh.
listening to one of you guys, one of
Mhm.
your shows,
Mhm.
and I was having a terrible day at work. I used to work for a steel firm.
Okay.
which
Yeah.
was a graft. It was a long day,
Yeah,
long
it was
hard
tough.
day.
Yeah, yeah, tough work.
And
Yeah.
we weren't always allowed to listen to podcasts, but every now and again
Mm-hmm.
I'd sneak my
Oh
earbuds
man.
in and I'd
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah.
And you guys, you got me through my shift,
Oh God, man. Yeah.
and it stands out. Like, and
Good. Yeah.
I've been a fan ever since, man.
That's what you remember, man. It's like I remember one of the first times I listened to Athletic Comments, I nearly had to pull over on the motorway because I was about to fucking die. I was about creased over. He does a Peter Beardsley. Do you remember Peter Beardsley?
Yes,
He
man.
impersonates
Newcastle.
Peter. Yeah, yeah. He takes the piss out of Peter Beardsley, something terrible. And I was creased over. I was trying to drive on the motorway going, shit, I can't. But yeah, we get that every now and then. Someone will say that to us, and that's what I get out of the podcast. Someone will say to us, I was in stitches laughing at your podcast, or like what you just said. And for me, that's what that makes them worthwhile. Then that's exactly the reaction that I want. I don't really want people to say, oh, I know so much about Bigfoot now that I listen to your podcast. I want people to say, I had a good day or I had a laugh. That's what I
Yeah,
want. That's what I
yeah,
want from it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Your podcast is absolutely awesome.
Cheers, man. Cheers.
Brother,
Good to hear.
I have loved talking to you today, man. I'm
Yeah,
hoping
dude.
this is the first of many.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely, man.
coming to see you. I'm going to get on the boat and
Yeah,
I'm coming
do.
to see you, man.
Do, man. Look, and that's no bullshit. I'm not saying it just because we're on a podcast, but you're ever over this way, man, give us a shout. You know,
Thank
we
you,
can
man.
link up. Absolutely. You're more than welcome.
And if you
And
ever want to come
yeah.
over to Dorset, we'll go down London, Dorset.
Well,
And
I'll probably be in London next month. I'll give you a shout, man.
oh man, yeah, I'll come and
I'll
see
be
you. That'd
over
be
hunting
amazing.
fucking CEX and shit like that. I buy loads of
Oh,
retro video games, so I'll be probably doing
oh
that as well.
wow.
You know
Oh,
what I
that's
mean?
awesome, man.
I
Same.
got a question for you before you go, though. What color is
Yep.
London?
What colour is London? I'm
Uh,
gonna. It's red, brother.
that's red and that's blue.
Chelsea.
Yeah, yeah, Chelsea.
Oh
Yeah.
well,
They're my team.
I'm actually a Leighton Orient fan. So,
Oh yeah. Okay, cool, cool. So yeah,
so
so you're a glutton for punishment.
yeah, I can't give anybody any stick when it comes to sport.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, look, sure, we're Irish, so we just pick a team, we just
Yeah.
go with it. But Chelsea's my one, yeah.
Have you been to Chelsea? Have you been to the game?
I haven't been to a match. My brother only went, so I got into Chelsea because of my brother. My brother has been into Chelsea since literally the Zola days, the Vialli days, so way before the money or anything like that. And he lives in London now, and he only went to see Chelsea for the first time like last year. And like, yeah, Norwich betting 1-0. And he was like,
Oh
this,
man.
this is awful. So yeah, hopefully we're having better days now. Anyway, it
Yeah,
seems
man.
to be
Yeah,
picking up a
I
bit.
think Chelsea are coming back,
Yeah,
man.
it seems to be picking up
It's
a
been a
bit. Cole
couple of
Palmer, man, is
oh,
such a lad. Love him.
what a player.
Long player, man.
He's in my
Long player.
fantasy team, man, and
Same.
he got me some points this
Same.
weekend. So
Same. I must add it to my league, actually. I have a little small
yeah, let's do
personal
it.
league. I must add it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
cool. Yeah,
awesome,
yeah.
brother.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you and your awesome show?
Absolutely, yeah. So if people want to hear us, go and just Google Monster Fuzz Podcast. You can find us on Instagram. I think it's Monster Fuzz Podcast over there. That's probably the main place to follow us. We do post on TikTok every now and then. We do post YouTube shorts, and we just recently have started the YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel is kind of we're trying to grow it actually because it's miles behind the podcast platform. So if people want to check us out, especially if they're used to watching you on YouTube, I know you have YouTube as well, Tommy. To head on over to YouTube, drop a subscription, leave a like and all that. That'd be much appreciated. But yeah, you can find us anywhere. Just search Monster Fuzz Podcast. We're on pretty much all platforms.
Awesome, brother. I will share the links in the show description.
Yeah.
I know what you mean about YouTube because we're on YouTube, but it's like at first I didn't want to do the YouTube, and now I feel like I sort of had to do the YouTube,
I think.
and it is cool. Like everyone, you get people that say, "Are you on YouTube?" and they're like, "No, we're on all the podcast platforms, but not YouTube." And then they're like, "Oh, okay." So
it's nice seeing people.
Yeah. So we're on YouTube as well. You're on YouTube. Links will be in the show description.
Cool.
People need to check out your show because it is fantastic.
Cheers,
brother, thank you so much, man. Guys, if you've enjoyed the episode, share it where you can. That is a great way to support us. Give us both 5 stars because that helps us out massively. And we'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe. Keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you, brother. Thank you.